Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
It's The In Show, Australia's only show dedicated to innovation from Adelaide, Australia and across the globe.
Hi, it's David Grice and Troy Sincock for Hybrid World Adelaide at Tonsley Innovation Precinct, an exciting new technology festival for South Australia. On day 3, the public events were in full swing with a stack of free and ticketed events that were a whole lot of fun. Hybrid World crossed to the League of Legends 2017 Championships in China. There was a live recording of the Dragon Friends podcast as they made their way through a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. The future of music on the main stage discussed innovation and where things are headed. And Fat Controller and Future Sounds hacked HWA main stage for a party like it was 2099 with Nina Las Vegas, Heartway and a whole lot more. David, who'd you spend time with today?
Well, Troy, I almost got overwhelmed with everything that was happening today. The amount of gamers, drone flyers, school groups and everything else that was going on was amazing. There was panel discussions on podcasting, the future of music and so much more. Most of my day was spent in the Hybrid World Adelaide lab where 15 startups spent the day being mentored and honing their pitches, where tomorrow they can take home their share in an $85,000 prize pool thanks to Tech in SA. Mark Pesce joins me now and he delivered an inspiring talk last night on the building blocks for a new century. Welcome to the In Show, Mark, and I'm particularly interested about the notion that you shared with us about super tools. So can you share with us what you mean by that?
Well, one of the things that we actually saw at the Hybrid World Masterclass were people coming up and actually talking about the new tools that they developed. So, for example, Andrew Hessel talked about tools that allow you to actually design organisms from the genome level, sending them off and having the genome printed and then using a virus to insert it into a cell. And it's like, that's actually a super tool for biology that gives us an entirely new way to think of it. Phil Alvelda talked about these tools that will allow you to actually both read and write neurons in the brain in a way that's just orders of magnitude better than what you can think of from, say, a cochlear implant, things like that. So that's a super tool as well for being able to interface to the body. We saw this amazing, what they called kinetic fusion technology, which blasts titanium and actually allows you to 3D print titanium in an amazing way. So that's a super tool for metals. What we're seeing are this new generation of tools that are orders of magnitude better. They're not a little improved. They're dramatically improved. And so what they do is when you do that, anyone who's wielding that super tool now has an enormous capacity that no one else had before this. And now pretty much everyone does.
It's incredibly exciting. And obviously, you know, you've been now at the forefront of digital revolutions for over 3 decades. You've no doubt seen some huge change through this time. Is there a particular decade that maybe jumps out as a more transformational decade than another?
Well, we're still absorbing the web. All right, so I mean, the transitions, the major transitions that we've seen have been the PC. So that was just at the time I started working, 81, was around the time the PC was introduced as a commercial platform. It existed as a hobbyist platform before that. Then we saw the web, that was around 93, 94, and I was very much at the center of what was going on with that at the time. And then we see the transition also into the era of the smartphone. So we have these 3 major points, and each of them basically builds on everything that we learned from everything that came before it. The smartphone wouldn't actually be as useful if it didn't have all of the web that it was connected to. The web wouldn't be as useful if there weren't all of these PCs to generate content for it, so on and so forth. So what we're doing is we're adding layers, but the stuff underneath is always still visible. And the thing that comes after the smartphone, whether that's augmented reality glasses or voice interfaces, it's still undeclared, but we know that it's still going to be sitting underneath the smartphone, and then underneath that, the web, and then underneath that, the PC.
I'm glad you touched on that because we've been exploring over the last couple of days, you know, what like Robert Tursek actually shared with us, what's the next after the next. What do you see that being?
Well, one of the things that I'm clear on is that machine learning, or in this interesting moment, machine learning used to not be possible. It is now possible. It's getting cheap, but it's now possible, but it's not pervasive. And so we're in this interesting gap between possibility and pervasive application. And I think that's really interesting because pervasive application of machine learning in the world, optimizing everything, but also tuning everything to our presence in it and what that means all the time is going to change a lot of the relationships relationships around the world that we think of as very fixed and very static. For the next generations, none of that is fixed, none of that is static. It's all quite mutable, it's all quite flexible, all the way down to the DNA, maybe in our cells, but certainly in the cells of the organisms that are around us in the world.
So what's inspiring you the most at the moment?
So it's an interesting question, and it's a hard one to answer because I kind of naturally work from a position of being inspired. I have to say that having sat through the presentations that I saw yesterday at Hybrid World gave me a whole new set of things to be really excited and inspired by, and help put things into context for me about things that are closer than I thought they were. So I think that that's really important. I do think that some of the work that I was doing 25 years ago in virtual reality and augmented reality is now very close. And we've seen just in the last month ARKit come out with iOS 11 and AR Core come out in the Android devices. And now we're going to get to this world where we're mixing the virtual world and the real world. That's been something that we've needed to do. And people are using it for entertainment stuff now. I think it's much more interesting to be able to use it to reveal the hidden layers of the real world, all of the data that's hidden in a wall, in a building, in a person, whatever it might be. And so we're actually now marrying the world of our information, the world of the web, to the world of the real.
Was there anything particularly yesterday that sort of jumped out at you as something that made you go, wow?
I mean, I do come back to Andrew Hassel's talk and Phil Alvelda's talk as being really interesting moments of being able to take a look at a transition from a read-only medium, both in biology and the brain, to read-write media. And that this is a huge transition because it forces us to think about the fact that we don't just see what's going on, but we now have capacity to affect what's going on. And that actually then brings us into a whole set of choices about what do we do, what do we choose to do with this capacity, how do we use this capacity. And a lot of the talk that I gave was about let's reframe, let's constantly reframe. Pollyanna played this game called The Good Game, where she would always look at the best side of any possible situation, no matter how bad it was. And that saw her through. And I think with these technologies, they're so potent, we always have to imagine, maybe not the utopian, but a really strong possible use for this, because in some sense that acts as a counterweight to all of the ways that it could be used that may not be that positive.
So looking broadly at Hybrid World, it's the first event of its type in Australia particularly. What sort of excited you most about the event this year?
Well, I think the interesting thing is that this isn't a bunch of theory. This is actually a bunch of practice. And that's the important thing. And it really nails down the fact that these things are happening now, and that they're accessible now, and that they're useful now. And so people need to start thinking, and because I work as a futurist, a lot of what I do is simply alerting people to things that are already going on. There's this wonderful phrase, which is that the seeds of the future are already in the present. And so yesterday, Hybrid World was take a look at all of these seeds. Now it's up to you to think about what those seeds will mean to your business or to your industry or to your research.
Well, another inspiring day here at Hybrid World Adelaide, and I'm now off to the Winnovation Awards to see what's happening there, so I'll chat to you again tomorrow.
Thanks, David. That's Friday done at Hybrid World Adelaide. Well, that was the In-Show podcast from the Tonsley Innovation Precinct. The In-Show is a Hybrid World Adelaide media partner. Subscribe on iTunes and check out theinshow.online. More inspiring minds and innovation from the Technology Festival again tomorrow on The In-Show.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.